What is going on, Governor? It's Chisgule here, and today we're going to talk about whether or not the upcoming change to the number of helps you can receive to heal your hospital is going to kill free-to-play, or is everything going to be okay? Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Today we're going to take a very data-oriented lens to view this upcoming change, constraining the number of times that players can be helped to 1,000 for healing your hospital only. Let me just jump in and say at the front of this video that if we can come up with a better solution, I will happily champion it, bring it to Lilith, and advocate for it. So I want to start this video by saying that I will happily champion any better solution that we can come up with, if we can come up with one. And let me add that I know there's a lot of frustration right now from a lot of folks. I want you to channel that frustration into constructive action, which I am willing to take on your behalf. Leave comments with constructive recommendations for what a better path forward will be. I will be reviewing those. Throw likes on the ones that you are most interested in. If you're interested in me advocating on your behalf, consider throwing a like on the video. Let's get started here. This topic today was requested by you in the community that we talk about. And let me just say, I'm on your side to try to make the game as awesome as it can possibly be, especially for free-to-play players, which is why we're going to be talking about this today. If you like Rise of Kingdoms guides that help you get value and smash your enemies, consider smashing that subscribe button for daily Rise of Kingdoms videos. And we are a sponsored content creator, which I want to talk about for just a moment, because I've had the pleasure of interacting with Lilith on several occasions to propose changes, to ask questions, and the thing that I'll say is that they are very data-oriented. So if they're making this change, I have to think that it's based in some amount of data. So here's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about whether or not this is going to be an issue for free-to-play players and how much of an issue we think it's actually going to be, because I think this is definitely going to constrain the amount of fighting players might do or require them to use more universal speed-ups toward healing their troops. So the structure for today's video is going to be as follows. First, we're going to review exactly what this change is. Secondly, we're going to talk about how much of an issue this actually is. How much can you heal given this new constraint? Then we'll talk about the math behind how much healing you might need to do in a kingdom versus kingdom. And last but certainly not least, we'll talk about what this means for the game moving forward, and if there are any other ideas we can come up with that are going to be better than this. So strap yourselves in. This is going to be a good one. What is happening with this? Some of you may not have realized that what you can do to heal your hospital very, very efficiently, and I've talked about this a bunch, is to heal your troops in small batches. Now, this is so effective because of alliance technology that reduces the amount of troops that you'll need to ultimately heal, or really the healing time that is remaining. So there's a alliance technology here called Together We Rise, and you can see over here when you help your allies build or upgrade buildings, research and technologies, and heal troops, each help action will fill the progress bar by 1% or a minimum of 1 minute. And certain alliance technologies that we were just showing you increase that even more. So what people do, myself included, is they heal in small batches of troops so that the max number of helps that you get from your alliance center actually completely heals the number of troops that you've selected. For me, that varies on whether or not I'm using T4 or T5 and what buffs are active, but it's anywhere from 2,500 to 4,000 troops. So I can heal those troops without having to wait any time at all, really, or use any speed ups. All I have to do is get helped the requisite number of, 30 times for me with my max alliance center, and boom, those troops are healed. They're back into the fight. So some people thought they'd be really smart and create a bot farm, and that bot farm just presses help. So you create 30 bots, you make it so that those 30 bots just push help, and you can very, very rapidly heal down your own hospital. You can do that basically about as fast as you can select heal the 4,000 troops, press help, the bots help you, heal the 4,000 troops, press help, the bots help you. That, I think, is what Lilith is trying to stop with this patch right over here. Because they're making it so that, hey, now you can only be helped 1,000 times. Okay? So they're trying to attack botting by constraining the number of times you can be helped. Now, why would they attack botting in this way instead of just banning the bots? My assumption would be that it is prohibitively difficult to figure out which accounts are the bots and which accounts are not. Now, that may or may not be true, but let's assume for the time being that it is, okay? Because if that's not true and you can find the bots other ways, then obviously my recommendation is that they should go do that. But if you can't, and look, it's entirely possible that you could make a bot sophisticated enough where it would be really hard to tell, okay? This happens all the time where people's farm accounts get banned. They're accused of being bots. They're not bots. People get really upset, right? So I get it. I get it. To avoid the frustration of banning real accounts on the accusation that they're bots when they're not, Lilith is basically saying we don't have the strength of evidence for now to be able to find and block these bots. That's my guess. Okay, that's my guess as to why they would solve it this way. So if that is the case, is this actually a good solution, and how constraining really is this? Well, I went and I did some math. Let me pull up this math now, because look, like if we're going to make an argument to Lilith that it's not okay and it needs to change, we need to have some data to support our case here. So let's just gather some data, do some math, and then make some conclusions from there. All right, what you're looking at here is my Rise of Kingdoms toolkit. The link is in the description. This is a spreadsheet that I've made where I just do math publicly, and like you can just go look at it anytime. It includes things like my legendary commander tier list, the epic tier list, the value of universal and specific commander wheels, and now we've done some math for 1,000 helps and what this means for the game. So in order to understand the significance of constraining the number of times you can be helped to 1,000, we first need to make a couple assumptions. First of all, I'm going to assume that the majority of your healing is done without the new Kingdom Healing buff, even though that buff is amazing. I'm going to assume that although KVK lasts for 45 days for Season 3 and 4, that you won't have a meaningful amount of injured troops until about day 15 when you're battling for the ruins. So there's about 30 days of KVK where you really need to be doing a lot of healing. And I also am going to make the assumption that where possible, you would try to spread your healing across as many days as possible to get your maximum 1,000 helps. So we just want to understand what that would look like, okay? So how many troops can you heal with 1,000 helps? I made a few assumptions, which you can see over here, and I'll zoom in on this a little bit. But my assumption is that a free-to-play player is probably going to heal to the tune of 80 to 85,000 T4 troops for free using the help technique that we were just talking about earlier, where your Alliance Center helps fully heals your hospital. So it's about 80,000 troops, okay? And that assumes it's a pretty advanced account. By the way, you might have maxed out your Alliance Center to have accomplished that. So the next question I ask is, okay, if you could perfectly spread out this healing, over the course of a KVK, the fighting days of a KVK, the 30 days, how much healing are you actually going to do? And that would be about 2.5 million troops that you could heal. To put that in a different measure, that's about 3.5 full hospitals worth of troop healing, which when you put it that way is remarkably inadequate. I know that fighting at one ruins or altar that goes really poorly, you could end up with a full hospital just from that alone. So this does prove that the amount of healing that you're now getting is going to require you to use speedups for sure. No question about it. You've got to use speedups, even if you could perfectly spread this out over time. There's a lot of healing that you're ultimately going to have to do here. So if that's the case, how much healing might you actually need to do during a kingdom versus kingdom? And I made a few more assumptions, and I just said, well, wait a minute, Chisgule, how much healing do you need to do during this KVK? And the way that I thought that I might look at this is like, okay, well, Chisgule, how many days of healing speedups did you use For me, it was about 83 days of healing speedups over the course of KVK. That's not including the number of times I was healing down my hospital over time just using the help technique, which is something that I was doing. So I had to use 83 days on top of doing the help technique for some amount of KVK. I definitely do that less than other players for sure. I never let the, hospital capacity stop me from continued fighting, so I'll just heal huge batches very regularly. So the amount of healing speedups a free-to-play player might need, beyond what I used, because I'm going to assume you're going to need to do extra healing because you do not have max commanders, and you're going to have to do extra healing because you don't have, I think it's the VIP 15 boost that gives a 50% healing speed boost, which helps your hospital pretty significantly. So I assume there's like a 2.5x multiplier for the amount of extra healing you're going to need to do, in part because your commander quality is not going to be the same, in part because your tech's not going to be the same, and in part because you don't have the VIP 15 healing percent boost. So I assume from all of this that a free-to-play player who's fighting like crazy, I fight like crazy. I don't think a free-to-play is going to do this, but if you're bringing like 5 marches and you're going ham like I am, that you're going to need about 208 days of healing speedups or about 5,000 hours. Now, look, this is not perfect math. Okay, it's not perfect, but I just wanted to get a sense of like approximately how many universal speedups are we talking about that you would need to commit to healing now that you didn't need to commit before. And that's really not a fair representation either, by the way, because I think the reality is that a lot of free-to-play players just stop fighting when their hospital starts to get full, and they heal down, and then once they've healed down, they get back in the fight. Whereas the amount of healing speedups I needed to use here is much higher, because anytime my hospital was getting full, I just freaking healed it, right? So I'm fighting a lot more than I think your average player is going to be fighting. But even then, if we account for this 2.5x multiplier, and we're like, all right, a free-to-play would need to fight like crazy, a lot. You would need 208 days of speedups. Is that an achievable number of speedups to obtain over the duration of a KVK and between KVKs, in addition to boosting your buildings, boosting your tech, and doing all the other things you need to do? And I'll be honest, this does sound like a lot, right? Like when we go back to technology, and let's just jump back into Rise of Kingdoms real quick. If we were to look at what that means for your technology, that means like once every 3 months or 4 months, let's say 4 months, between like the time between KVKs and during KVK, between 3 and 4 months, you could have done like medical core, like levels 8, 9, and 10, right? So for one of these big important T5 researches, you could have done combined arms 8, 9, and 10, right? Like, or encampment 8, 9, and 10. It's certainly a significant amount of speedups, but it's also not a like account ending amount of speedups. Yes, it sucks that you would be using universals that you would have used before for training troops, that you would have used before for doing research, to instead be healing your troops. That sucks. But I do think there is an amount of healing you could do here where you're still able to fight in KVK. So to answer the question, can you still fight in KVK as a free-to-play player? I think the answer is definitely yes. Is it going to cost you universal speedups now? Yes. Is the amount of universal speedups particularly prohibitive? And I'm going to say no. Does it suck? Don't mishear me. Yes. Do I wish there was a better way? Yes. We're going to talk about that. But like, to answer the question of, can a free-to-play still fight in KVK? The answer is definitely yes. Because even if you have more troops going to the hospital and you're fighting as much as I am and like I fight like 20 hours a day, right? Like when the fighting is happening, like legit 20 hours a day. But let's assume you're doing that too, right? Like, I think you can still save enough universals to heal down that hospital and fight as much as you want to fight. So the question then becomes, like, how much does KVK actually change if people aren't willing to use the universal speedups, and what dynamics would change to kingdom versus kingdom if, in fact, this does not change at all. If this does not change at all, what does that mean? I think what this would mean is that more free-to-play players might tap out of fighting sooner because they say, you know what? I like fighting in this game, but not as much as I want to advance my technology. That's a choice I'm going to make. I'm going to choose to work on my tech instead of fighting in the field because the field fighting just feels too expensive to me. A reasonable choice to make. I often feel that way. In fact, if you look at my restart account, I've got like 500,000 lifetime kills. Like I've done like no fighting on that account at all. Because I'm like, that's expensive. I've only just hit the point where I have more research speedups that I need to be doing than resources that I need. And now I'm entering the realm where I'm like, yeah, I got the resources to burn. I could fight in the field. So all that to say, I think the way this changes the dynamic is that free-to-play players might tap out sooner from the field fighting, or they might bring fewer marches to field fighting. I think it definitely shifts the game in the realm of needing fewer commanders that are maxed out rather than having more commanders that are in a decent place, like 5.5.1.1s, so that every time you're in the field, you do the maximum amount of punch you can do rather than having 5 marches with a bunch of epic commanders or even a bunch of 5.5.1.1 legendaries that has you really incur a high hospital bill quickly. What this will do is shift the dynamic of the game slightly away from field fighting and more into the realm of structure fighting. And I think that the dynamic of owning the field still being important to take down structures is not going to change. I don't think that's going to change. What I think will change is the amount of field fighting that'll happen before ultimately the field is decided one way or another. And honestly, I don't know that it's even going to change that much because you definitely can accumulate the universal speedups over the course of the 3-month window. It just becomes a priority question. What's important to you? Is it building more troops? Is it working on your research? Or is it fighting in the field in KVK? And you'll have a choice to make as a free-to-play player. And for free-to-play players that already have their T5 maxed out, yet again, you have a choice to make. Is it training more troops? Or is it going to be fighting in the field? And I'll be honest, I think it would be totally fine for a T5 player to say, you know what? My free-to-play T5 choice is going to be to fight in the field rather than to train more troops and send them to die. And if what they ultimately do is they fight in the field a whole heck of a lot, I think that's a phenomenal contribution, right? So they send less troops to die, which means the pay-to-win players are going to be sending more troops to die, right? In order to account for free-to-play sending less to die, which ultimately is what we're saying. And let me put this another way. If what people are choosing between is, am I going to train more troops to die, or am I going to use my speed-ups to just heal my troops? I would choose to heal my troops and not send as many to die, right? And to really field fight a lot and to make a big impact. Reasonable choice. That means the pay-to-win players need to now go send more troops to die. Is that so bad for pay-to-win players? No. I think they should do that. It's good for the kingdom. It's definitely good for the health of the kingdom if the pay-to-win players send more troops to die, right? Because that also means for your Imperium status, if you're in an Imperium kingdom, you're going to have that drop down faster because it is the players that have the most power that are contributing the most toward Imperium. But that's a separate topic, right? So when we think about what the changes are to the game, I think there's a real question of how you would prioritize your speed-ups and how you prioritize your gameplay. And I think it would be very, very reasonable for a free-to-play player to say, okay, fine, I'm not going to send troops to die. I'm just going to fight in the field and I'm going to use speed-ups for that. Totally okay choice. And that means pay-to-win players need to send more to die. Now, is my interpretation of this perfect? Probably not. Let's talk about, however, what other things we might propose. Because I really spent a lot of time trying to figure out, like, wait a minute. What would I propose that's better than this? Because, look, I'll propose it to Lilith. I will happily go to Lilith and say, here is what I would propose instead of doing this approach, I recommend you do this other thing instead. And I thought about it a lot. I mean, for days I have been thinking about this, okay? Literally for days I have been asking in chats, I have been thinking about it, and I have not heard a single thing that I could take to Lilith and be like, hey, you should do this instead, which is a little bit concerning. I could not think of a better solution, nor could the community. Now, that said, leave some comments down below with what you think a better solution is, because I will champion the heck out of whatever better solution we can come up with. So all that to say, I couldn't come up with a better solution for this. I thought about a lot of different things. What are some things I thought about? First of all, I thought about what if you constrained the number of helps that someone could do rather than the number of helps they could receive. The problem with that is you just create more bots and it doesn't solve anything. So the other thing that I thought might be like, okay, like what else could we do here? One thing we could go and we could do is we could make the number of helps you can receive be tied to something like your alliance center's level, right? So if your alliance center's level was higher, you could receive more helps, but that doesn't deal with the bots. You're a legit player, but that was never in question whether or not you were legit. It's the bots we're trying to attack. So how do we attack these bots without attacking the legit players or while minimizing the damage to the legit players, you know? That's the thing that I was sort of struggling with is, like, what mechanism could we come up with that helps with this? And, like, I don't think we could put something in that makes it so that, like, every time you want to help somebody, you got to verify. Like, that sounds like a pain in the butt. And these bots must be getting around the existing verification mechanisms as it is. I honestly find myself somewhat stumped as to what a better solution would be. I think if it was obvious, Lilith would have gone with that obvious solution. But if you have an obvious solution, I am begging you to drop it into the chat. I will review the comments down below. I always review the comments of my videos. And you know, maybe I don't see every single one, but like I try to respond to as many as I can. But for this video, I'm going to be looking down in the comments below. What is the better way to do this? I'm all in on if we can find a better way to champion it. I'm all in. I'm all in. I just have not seen it anywhere yet. And I've been looking high, I've been looking low. Hopefully you found this video evaluating this upcoming change to be helpful. And honestly, sincerely, I will be reviewing the comments to find how we as a community can come together and propose a solution that people really like. If we can come up with a better one. Until we've got that, though, if you're a free-to-play player, I would start saving those universal speed-ups or prepare to make a choice. Is it going to be doing your research? Is it going to be doing more troop training? Or is it going to be fighting in the field? And you'll have to choose which one of those things is more important to you. And I think it will be perfectly reasonable to say, all right, I'll just send less troops to die, and the pay-to-win players, they need to cover that part of the game more than I do. And honestly, like, that's what those players should be doing anyways. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, do me a favor, drop a like on the video. I will be reviewing the comments to try to find an optimal path forward, better than the approach that's being taken, if we can find it. And until next time, you have fun smashing the kingdom.